I'm going to show you how to make your very own gift bag. They're really simple to make. You can make one from a fat quarter and it's a great beginner sewing project. To make the drawstring bag, you're just going to need one fat quarter, some ribbon, and then your usual tools. So we've got pins, scissors, rotary cutter, ruler, and then my table is my cutting mat. So to start with, you need to think about if you've got a directional print. So you might have a pattern on your fabric which has got a top and a bottom, or a left and a right. Obviously you need to incorporate that into your bag, make sure that's going the right way. And you want to decide whether you want it with the opening long ways at the top or with the opening short ways at the top here. So I'm going to do a nice long drawstring bag. Now I'm going to make my bag a little bit shorter, so we're just going to square off our fabric and make it really nice and neat. So my piece now measures 10.5 by 20 inches along. We now need to sew all the way along the 3 edges that are not the opening. So we're going to leave the top opening and then we're going to sew along those 3 edges. I'm going to leave a 2-inch gap at the top because this is where my opening is going to go. Take my pins out, and something that I didn't mention that you could use as well as an optional tool is to then take some pinking shears and cut that seam allowance around the edge. Okay, so now I've done the pinking shears around the edge. Again, like I say, you don't have to do that. It's just going to make it last a bit longer. And the other option is you could do a small zig over the edge. So onto the next bit, we just need to snip in and then we're going to press over this edge. So we're going to do a small snip where that seam ends. We're going to snip up to the stitches but not on the stitches, and again on the other side. And then we're just going to press that edge in. Same on the back. And then while we're with the iron, we're going to fold it and then fold it again. So we're going to fold it over by about 1/4 inch and press. And then we're going to fold it again. So that it meets that edge of the stitch. Something you can do as well at this stage before we do the top of the bag down, before we stitch that down, is you can actually stitch around your opening. So once you've pressed your seam allowance to the inside, you just need to run a line of stitches along across the bottom and up to the top, and that's just going to make it a little bit sturdier. But I haven't added that into the other instructions just because that could be a bit fiddly getting around that edge. So if you're a bit more advanced and you feel like you want to tackle this, you can add that into your project. So I'm back at my sewing machine and I'm just going to put some pins in to secure that, and then I'm going to stitch along those 2 edges. And a little tip when you're sewing is to start a few stitches in, and then the fabric is less likely to get pulled under. Obviously you want to make sure your threads are at the back. So you start forwards obviously, then you go back to do your locking stitch, and then you'll catch that edge then. Now, when it comes to this opening bit, I like to go backwards and forwards like a locking stitch, but I'm not actually going to cut my thread. I'm going to push that through, and I'm just going to kind of use my little tool to help me with that so that it catches, and then I'll be fine on my way again. And then the final thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the bottom of the bag, and we're going to pull the front and the back away from each other so that you've got this kind of point, and we're going to match up those seams and the point, and we're going to just tease it apart so you've got this kind of formation. And then I'm going to put a pin in to keep that in place, and then I'm going to take my tape measure, and I'm just going to measure. Now I've got this silly tape measure, tailor's tape measure, with the bit on the end, so I'm just going to measure from 3, but I'm only measuring 2 inches, so I'm going to put a pin in there so that I know that that's where I want to stitch, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line across that angle. So it's going to make it easier for when I come to stitching. I'm going to use my trusty friction pen, which is just the best thing for this kind of a method. Right, so we're just going to draw that line like so. Put a pin back in. Oops. And then I'm going to stitch over that line, and of course, locking stitch to start, locking stitch finish. So to finish off the bag, we just need to put our ribbon through. I'm using a double-faced satin ribbon, but actually you could use pretty much any kind of ribbon. And we need 2 lengths, which are double the opening width. So I'm doing it just over a couple of inches, just to make sure we've got space for the knot. And when you're cutting your ribbon, you always want to cut it on an angle, and you want to just burn the edges. You just want to kind of show the flame to the ribbon so that it seals the edge. And then using a safety pin, we're going to thread them through. So, and then we're going to do exactly the same. A little bit trickier on the second go, but we're going to start at the opposite end, the opposite opening. And then we're just going to tie a knot in each end, or each side. Even out the ribbons, and there we go. Please click one of the links on the screen right now. It's going to take you through to some great tutorials. The playlist at the top is perfect for beginner sewers with lots of tips and ideas. The one at the bottom is my newest tutorial. I'll see you on the next video.